Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that immensely. I love it if you leave a comment as well, whether you have a question about this video, a suggestion for another kind of video, if you want to tell me how you do things, or you just have some constructive criticism. I always appreciate ways to improve what I'm doing here. So, thanks for that. On my Patreon, every month I give them a different prompt to give them get them going on some ideas for different projects. And this month the topic was comfort. So anything that brings you comfort. And one of the things that brings me comfort is my morning coffee. And I recognize that I have a coffee problem, although I usually limit it to about 3 cups a day anymore. I sure do like the morning times when I can have a nice cup of coffee and read a book or play a video game or something like that. That's always kind of nice. And it does definitely bring me comfort. So I thought today I'd do a coffee themed bracelet, and I think I'm going to make something relatively simple, so it's likely going to be sort of a beginner-ish project. May have to do a little bit of sawing. I don't think I'm going to put a stone in this one. I think I'm just going to make it simple. So before we get started, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon, I really appreciate their support. I have a new patron, Louise M. Thank you for signing up. I really do appreciate your support, and I hope that you find, as I have, that that's a really nice group of people with a lot of knowledge who are certainly willing to share what they know. So it's a nice environment over there. And I'd also like to thank all of my previous patrons who have been making this all possible for me. So. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 18,700, which is amazing. Thank you for that. And I look forward to hitting 20,000 soon, so tell your friends. But thank you for all the nice comments and the support. I love it when I hear from someone that they're getting something good out of me. That makes it feel like I'm doing something good here. So I do also appreciate the contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. Those really help with the cost of materials. So thanks for that. All right, well, let's get started on the coffee cup bracelet. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. I use them to sketch up all my designs as I come up with them, and I find it to be a great resource for keeping track of what I've made and how I made it. So the more recent ones have some interesting charts on the back. This particular one has a fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters conversion table, which I find pretty useful, but there's a couple of other different ones too. So here's today's project, and let's see. So this is kind of a top view of what I want it to be. I'm just going to do kind of a simple coffee cup out of probably 18 gauge sheet, and I may solder a little strip of something across here. I was thinking maybe some half round, but I don't know. I'll have to see how it looks sitting on top of it. This will probably be made out of 14 gauge round. 18 gauge sheet is 1.02 millimeters thick. 14 gauge round is 1.6 millimeters. These little steam pieces will also be made out of 18 gauge or 1.02. The band I'm going to make out of 6 gauge half round, which is a little over 4 millimeters wide, I think 4.09. And I'm going to elevate each of these slightly off of the top of the band so they kind of stick up away from the band. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I kind of exaggerated how tall I'm going to make it. I'm just going to make it a little bit. So I may use some discs cut out of 18 gauge or something like that. Just enough to get it separated up from the band. So I may have to file a little bit of a flat spot on top of the band. We'll see. I'll play it by ear as we get to that. But to start with, I think let's make the coffee cup and the flames. I did cut a piece of, where did I put that? Here it is. I cut a piece of this 8 gauge or 6 gauge half round already, just to get a feel for how big I wanted it to be. And it came out to be about 8.5 inches or 215 or so millimeters, somewhere in that range. And I may cut it down a little bit shorter depending upon how big it looks and when I get it wrapped around. So probably we'll make this flat, solder those pieces on, and then we'll bend it around and get it lined up. But I may bend it around after I have one of them on to get a feel for how big the bracelet will be, so I know where to position. Say I'll put the cup on first and then bend this around to get an idea where it's going to be directly above it, and that's where I'll cut it off and solder the little steam pieces there. Steam pieces, I guess that's a thing. So let's sketch out a coffee cup and cut it out, and then sketch out a flame design. And I'll probably do one kind of freehand, and then I'll cut it out, and then I'll use that as a template to scratch a design into some silver. So I cut out 3 of them that are pretty much the same. So let me find some 18 gauge. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. So it draws in atmospheric air through these holes to mix with the acetylene. And I use a #1 tip for the most part. So I don't want this to be a giganto bracelet, so I drew the coffee cup sort of smallish. Let's do this. Let's find some scratch paper. This being the center. There we go. Got a little transfer that time. That's pretty close. Now let's cut that out, and I'm going to glue it on to this piece of 18 gauge with a little bit of super glue. My super glue is just about dried out though, so it kind of comes out as a... But I just need it to attach to this long enough for me to cut it out. Close enough, probably. People often ask me about these shears, and they're just Fisker's craft shears. What I'm doing to them right now is a disservice to them. They are not really designed to cut metal, probably. But they work great on thin sheet, and I'm using them to cut 18 gauge sheet, which is pushing the limits of what they'll do. So just be aware that if you do that with these, they will wear out pretty quickly. But the convenience of having some shears that cut reasonably well through thick stuff like that offsets the fact that I have to buy a new pair now and again. So let's, while we're at it, let's see if we can sketch up a flame here. I don't know if I want them to be rounded or pointy. I guess we can cut one out. Let's see how it looks. I always round it if I don't like the pointiness. Alright, let's go saw those out and see how they look. That's pretty close. I'll clean it up with a file. I wasn't big on sawing until I started the channel, and then I figured I kind of needed to get good at it. And I wouldn't say that I've reached that stage yet. I'm adequate at it. That's what everyone wants to strive for, is being adequate. That's not terrible. I can clean that up pretty well, I think. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I got them both cleaned up a little bit. I used the Dremel with an abrasive white wheel to kind of smooth out this kind of steam shape or flame shape, whatever you want to call it. And so I think what I'll do is I'm going to cut 2 pieces of 18. I might be able to get it off of one of these little scraps. Stack them, tape them together, and then trace this onto them, and then I'll cut out the other 2 at the same time to try and get them as close to the same as possible. I definitely think I could probably get at least one of these off here. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back, and then we'll add a handle to it, and then we'll maybe cut out some little 18 gauge discs to be the spacer between the actual cup and the band, and then we'll start looking at connecting everything. So I'll be right back. Okay, a few things that I did. Like I said, I cleaned these up with the file. I cut out 2 more of these, and I made a decision off camera while I was thinking about this. I want the center one to be slightly higher than the other 2, just a tiny bit. So I marked where I'm going to attach these discs here, and I was going to cut out some little small ones to put on here, but I broke my disc cutter when I was hitting the smallest pin, and the pin snapped, so I couldn't cut any more of those because it was too short. So I had to use bigger ones, so I'll have to smooth off the excess there. But that'll still allow us to mount them onto to the end of this thing. So I think let's make a little handle for the coffee cup and figure out if we're going to put a little bit of decoration on there. Let's do the handle first. Find a little bit of 14 gauge round. Here's a little piece. Okay, I think I want it to be kind of that shape. So let's do use one of these bail making pliers, and I think maybe around this one here. Kind of like that, and I can narrow it down a little bit if I want to. See how that looks anyway. Yeah, I think it needs to be a little narrower. A little shepherd's crook kind of shape going on there, which I kind of like, actually. So I think let's do this. Let's take a marker. I can scratch a mark right kind of where I want it to go, like that. So I'll cut it off and then I'll file it down to those 2 points. We need to change the angle just a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm liking that. I'm going to move my little paper thingy so I don't catch it on fire. It would not be the first time. I do something called pick soldering, where I pick up a little bit of solder on the end of the pick and place it where I want it to go, which is a very useful skill to have if you're new to this. So if you're interested, I have a video up there. I'll put a link for you. It's a great thing to learn how to do. It really helps out a lot. See, I just picked it up like that. You don't have to do it on this particular project like that if you don't want to. Thought about doing a piece of pattern wire at the top of this, but I think with the clean look of the design, it should kind of be plain. So either half round wire or a piece of flattened square wire maybe. I'm going to clean this up with a Dremel to smooth that out and get it ready, and we'll see what it looks like with a couple of different things on there, and then we'll make a decision. So, okay, did some thinking about this. I cut 3 different pieces. I cut this is some 14 gauge that's been flattened. This is probably some 12 gauge that was flattened. And this is some half round that's somewhere around 10 gauge. So let's see what they look like, each of them. We'll start with the half round. My feeling was that the half round didn't look right. It didn't match the overall feel of it. This is the wider stuff that's flat. And that's okay, but I think it might be just a little too much. So my decision, I think, is going to be this one, which is 14 gauge, which was flattened. And so we'll solder that on there after I get it just to the right length. And then we can add those things and start putting this together. Add those things. So let's sweat a little bit of solder on the back of this, which is to pre-melt some on there so it's where we want it to be. Then we should be able to just flip that over, and it does have a tendency to kind of hydroplane on the liquid solder. Oops. I'm clumsy today, apparently. So I may need to keep a pick handy to kind of push it back into place. One thing we could do is, if we wanted to, we could put a couple of T-pins in there. Based on the amount of time that I spend digging around looking for what I'm trying to find, I think maybe I need to clean my table off. That would be my feeling. Okay. I thought if it does drift, if I had something to push it up against, that would be helpful. Alright, so let's pick up a little bit more solder. We'll put a couple of pieces in there. I kind of did a little bit of Kind of spreading it out back there. Just to kind of, as long as you have good contact between your things, the two pieces that you're trying to solder together, it should flow just fine, but it never hurts to have a nice layer along the whole length, I suppose. Okay, so that looks like it's pretty much where I wanted it to be. Let's file it flush. Alright. Now, let's, I think, use one of my soft surfaces, this magnesia block here, so nothing moves around. Just kind of push things down in there. And I want to center one of these little 18 gauge discs soldered right in there. So I'm going to do kind of the same thing I did a minute ago, is I'm going to solder right in the center of that. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to put solder on both sides. Since I'm going to be resoldering this down on top of that half round wire, might as well go ahead and get some on the other side as well, because this is really just a spacer between the band getting the band back together, between the band and the design. Trying to get that pretty centered. Again, watch it ice skate on me here. Solder skate. Silver skate? Ice skating, you're skating on top of something, so whatever you're skating on top of it. So silver skate, I guess, if we want to invent a new term. Or solder planing, like hydroplaning. Alright. I'll let him clean up for a minute. Alright, so let's do the same thing to these ones. I think I'm going to cut myself a little more solder. So what you're looking for here is, with solder on both sides of this, you'll see the top side liquefy before you'll see any solder forming a seam between the two pieces, and that's because the bottom piece is kind of protected from the heat by being half buried in this this insulating pad. So just heating it to where you see that solder up top flowing probably isn't hot enough. You need to make sure to kind of point some heat right at into the lower piece so that you get it up to the soldering temperature so that it actually sticks to that. If that makes any sense. Okay. Okay, so if you can see this or not. So this is the middle one, but since it's going to be facing this way, I need to, I'll need to remove that excess metal that's sticking out. So I can take my saw and just saw those off really quick, and then smooth it out with a Dremel. So I'll be right back. So just a couple more things to do. I need to mount this like that, and so in order to do that, I want to cut myself a flat surface with my file. In theory, anyway. I think that's probably pretty good. So I'll just spread out 2 pads here because this is a pretty long piece of silver. And if you're new to this, when you're heating silver to get it to solder, you got to get the entire piece hot. Otherwise, you'll have problems. So even though this is way down here, it acts as a way for heat to escape if you're not heating that part as well. So, maybe I should flip it and do it this way. What do you think? That'll create its own problems, probably. Alright, let's go. Oops. I have that it's lined up so nicely, and then I'm clumsy. So next we need to wrap this around the bracelet mandrel. I put my bracelet mandrel. Because we want this to kind of end up over like that. Just going to spend a minute wrestling with this to get this kind of in the shape and size that I want. That's pretty reasonable. So let's do this. I'm going to mark off top of the coffee cup there, the distance between there, and then we'll straighten this back out. Get a surface pretty flat there. Let's see if we can get these ones to sit on top or not. Didn't work last time. when I do put this one on, I may need to plunk it on very carefully. So let's see if we can get this one to go now. This is going to move as soon as I do this because it's hot. Let's see, I used this little thing the other day to elevate something, so maybe I can use this too. Keep this middle one from drooping because it's way off center, because all the weight will be over here. So let's see if that works. Let's cool this off and take a peek at it. And I think that'll be pretty cool. So I'm going to let that pickle for a while and maybe fix my wife some dinner and then come back and finish it. Alright, thought I'd give you a little look before I did the finish thing. I noticed I did my little flames backwards. I'm not sure how I did that, but I don't think it matters too much. From the side, this is how it looks. So it should be spread openable, I guess, a little bit. You can slide your wrist through, and over time it'll get more and more work hardened, so it'll get stiffer and springier. You can also manually do a little bit of that if you want to get it a little springier from the get-go. But I'm pleased. I kind of like how it is. It's cute. So some coffee lover will love that one. Alright, well, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, that was the coffee cup bracelet. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And I would love it if you take a moment and check out my main channel page. I have quite a bit of content now. I've been doing this for 3 years. I do 3 of these per week, so that builds up quite a bit of content. I have, I think, 450 plus video tutorials over there. So check out a few of them, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to visit the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to my most recent ebook, 2024's tutorial guide, which includes all of the tutorials I did on YouTube as well as some from Patreon. There's over 170 tutorial links there, and along with additional information about each. So it's a great resource to have projects right at your fingertips and a great way to support my channel. So get yourself one of those. The other links include a link to my Patreon if you want to check out that community. It's a nice place. And also a link to my merch store where you can get one of those nice design idea books that I use all the time to sketch out my designs. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.